This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santo sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley.
Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks.
Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo. I'm here with my wife, Christy.
Hello, hello. So we got some more mail.
Yes, we did.
Just incredible, the amount of love and support we are getting right now. This is great.
Very nice.
So this is from Dave Sweet. He said, just wanted you to know I came across your podcast over the weekend. My brother and I watched almost every game on WGN growing up in the late 60s and early 70s in Downers Grove. Your dad was my brother Andy's favorite player. I lost my brother Andy in June of last year, but I know that he would have loved to listen to your podcast with me. I bought him This Old Cub DVD for his birthday a few years back. He really enjoyed it. Wanted to share our favorite memory of watching your dad play. We only got to Wrigley a few times since our family only had one vehicle. 51 years ago next week, our dad took me and my brother to see the Cubbies take on the Giants. One of my favorite childhood memories. I just had turned 11 a month before. Your dad had a great outing. He had 4 hits with 2 home runs. Fergie was pitching. My dad bought us hot dogs, Cokes, and a program. Wish I still had it.
So sorry for your loss, Dave. 51 years ago, I remember roaming Wrigley Field with my brother Ronnie Jr. Great memories, man. Well, we got a great show with Don Kessinger, Part 2. Disco Demolition Night. When Don was the player manager for the White Sox, that's when Steve Daw brought Disco Demolition to Comiskey Park, and what a funny story he tells about that. And my crackerjack surprise call is Billy Pullano, another Pullano brother. Billy was executive producer for This Old Cub, and we talk about Santo Pizzeria that his dad started with my dad, and they were the first to put pizzas in the Wrigley Field, those little cardboard boxes.
Makes me think maybe we should bring back Santo Pizzeria shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Let's put a poll up. If you're on Spotify, listening on Spotify, we're going to have a poll up there to ask if you want to have a Santo Pizzeria t-shirt.
Oh, they're great t-shirts. Really comfortable to sleep in. So, enjoy the show.
Enjoy.
Hey, everybody. I was in Encino, California the other day at a meeting. And I get out of there, and I'm hungry as can be, man. And there's traffic, LA traffic. And I'm thinking, I got to get some side streets here like my dad did in Wrigley. And I wind up at Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive, and there's Gino's East Pizza. Boom, park the car, go inside, and I order a tavern pizza. Cheese and sausage, my favorite, top 3 foods of all time. And there's the owner, Dan and Todd, and they're like, hey man, you're on the TV. I'm like, yeah, right, guys. They love to razz me once in a while. And sure enough, I was. My dad's documentary from MLB was playing. But I had no time for that. I had to eat my pizza. I devoured that thing in a minute. I was so hungry. You got to go to Gino's East for the greatest pizza around. Gino's East, LA. Put it in your Google's map right now. It's going to be our place to go, me and Christy, on Friday's happy hour. Go to Gino's East, right near Coldwater Canyon and the 101. Put it in your Google's map now. We'll see you there. I got to ask you about the Don Young game. Why did it become such a sensationalized game, Don, to you?
Well, it shouldn't. It really shouldn't have. You know, it was just because the Cubs and the Mets were such a big deal. And it was down the stretch, there's no doubt. And Don Young could cover a lot of ground, Jeff. And he hit that ball in left center field out there. I can just see it, you know. And Don ran a long way for that ball, and it just popped out of his glove. He just wasn't able to hang on to it. And it turned out to be a big play. And you know, your dad, who was our captain, and a leader on the ball club. And, you know, he's very enthusiastic. I don't have to tell you that. He was upbeat, and he just, when we got in the clubhouse, you know, I don't remember, you probably know, but I don't remember the exact wording, but he said something about maybe the rookie dropped the ball or something, and he was honestly, it just, you have to know Ronnie to know there was nothing negative in his mind about what he was saying about Don Young. But and then later, see, and that became a big deal, and the papers and all, and yet what never got in the papers, to my knowledge, was after all of that in the clubhouse after the game, Ronnie went to Don Young back at the hotel, I guess, but somewhere. He went to Don Young personally and told him he's sorry he said that. He didn't mean it that way. And Don Young took it like that. I mean, he didn't, it was okay. I mean, and, but that never made the papers,
Right.
And,
right.
Yeah. So those are the things you wonder about, I guess. But,
yeah, the reason I bring that up is just because, it was a big thing in our family. It led to a lot of stuff, as you know. I've heard it all through my life, just certain things about that game. And, I feel like that, Durocher was the one that kind of sparked, like, why Don was upset and left early. And I'm sure, I just think my dad was so into winning and didn't like an attitude that when something bad happened, it's a team thing. And it seemed like Don kind of just wanted to leave and not deal with it. And, I know that, the whole story of that, because my dad took Don Young under his wing in that spring training because Leo had him do that because he was a rookie, said, we just want the guy to play out in the outfield and we don't really worry about his hitting. And so they had a good relationship there. I
thought they did. Jim.
Yeah.
I didn't. And because, we all, in certain situations, have a tendency to probably say things, and hopefully nobody hears them sometimes, I guess. But, it's just, look, that was a huge deal for us to win that pennant. We wanted to win that for the Cub, for the Cub fans. We really wanted to win that for the Cub fans. It had been so long, and they backed us all the way. And, it was just one of those deals. It was a tough blow for us because, we just thought we thought we had the best team in baseball. And I'm not sure we didn't, but.
That game, that was early, that was July 8th, but then you guys kind of went ahead of the Mets. And then when you went back there in September, the Black Cat game, and you were,
Sure.
Up to bat, you remember the whole Black Cat game. And what was that? Yeah. Talk about that.
Well, was Ron in the on deck circle or somewhere, wasn't he? He was right there standing by it. Man, I don't know, but you know what was really, I have to, this is honest truth. I almost wondered how, rather than being mad at those dudes, I was amazed that somebody could get a black cat in that stadium, get it down where the daggone dugout is, and put that black cat on the field, and that sucker walked straight across in front of our dugout, between our dugout and the field. Now, I mean, it wasn't so much I was worried about the bad luck of the black cat. I was far more worried about Tom Seaver than was that black cat.
Right.
I still am amazed at how they got that done.
Right. Yeah. And it's just the visual of it in the paper and all that. I mean,
Absolutely.
The Mets pulled off that one. Whatever Met fan or employee there, they really got into the minds of the psychology of the Cubs there. The game, that series though, you guys were right there. I mean, literally, the Mets were coming back. I think you guys were up a game, or maybe you were close to being even because you had a tough road trip coming from Philly. Now, the game that Jerry Koosman hit my dad on that purpose pitch. What'd you think of that when he did that?
Well, I think we all kind of thought that wasn't an accident, but I just never was really up for that kind of thing anyway, and I guess they just picked our captain, to do it. But it was another tough mental deal that we just had to overcome, and we didn't do a very good job of it, I don't think.
Yeah, it's almost that moment. I remember Hank Aguirre, I read something that he said, it felt like we should have just right there. It was like they were just sticking it, and thank God my dad didn't break his wrist. Obviously, he missed the rest of that game, I think, and played the next one. But that was kind of the where it started falling after that. Did you feel you were in it all the way to the end, or did you know there was a point that it just slipped away?
Well, I think that the last maybe 2 weeks we had our doubts then because we'd gotten pretty far behind them, and we ended up losing by 8 games or so. Yeah, you remember? Yeah, 8 games. Yeah, and it's just hard for me to believe that, and yet as I looked at both lineups, nothing against the Mets, I just thought we had the best baseball team, But again, I have to tell you, boy, their pitching was awesome. It was good, and because they blew right through the rest of the season too, the World Series.
Right, they sure did. They took the Orioles, lost that first game, and then just blew them away. So
they're diving and making plays in the outfield and all of that. So I got to give them credit. Yeah, when we used to have some old timers games. It always bothered me when Cleon Jones and them came up showing me the ring.
Yeah, wow. And that next year, Don, you guys still had a solid team. Did you feel 1970, we can be right here again?
Honestly, I thought, Jeff, and I'd still tell you today, that I thought between those years of 19, maybe even 68, but between 69, 70, through 72 or so, I thought we could win it. Every year I thought we were going to win it. And I guess losing in 69 hurt us, but we should have been a lot better. We should have won at least 1 or 2 or 3 of those years. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on Leo Durocher, Don? What'd you think of that? Did you think he worked you guys too hard that he didn't?
No, I think you have to understand. You have to understand, first of all, he's been in baseball forever. 40-something years. He's coached, he's managed, he's done it all. Mm-hmm. And the one thing about Leo, you have to give him a great deal of credit for, that there was never a doubt who was in charge. Leo, there were times sometimes back before he got there that there were people talking about who's making the lineup out, who's doing this, who's doing that. There was never a doubt when Leo Durocher came in and took over. And he did it his way. And you know what? I give him this credit too, man. If he thought that he wasn't worried about what other people thought, he did what he wanted to do with his team. And so I certainly, there are a lot of things Leo said and did in the heat of a game that probably, I wish he hadn't said maybe, and he wishes maybe he hadn't said. But he knew baseball. I tell you, I thought when he got there, he was an inning or two ahead of the game. He knew what he wanted to do down the road. So I just give him all that credit for that. Now, I think his last few years was a little bit different guy. And so it was a little different, and he did things. Right. But, for example, not that part of it, but the other part, when I'm telling you that he wanted to do it, he did it his way, and he wasn't worried about what other people think. Well, when Dick Groat was playing, we were playing against Dick Groat, who was Dick Groat, who was a great a great hit and run guy. Dick Groat. And great hit and run guy. The best. And so Leo told Beck and me, when a man's on first base and Groat's hitting, don't cover the bag. Just don't cover the bag. Just they let him steal. Because he said, because Groat's not going to swing and miss the ball. So just hold your position right where you are. And we did that, and fortunately, we never saw Hundley throw one in center field because we weren't there. So, And I mean, I've often wondered, would Leo remember he told us that?
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. But actually, it was a great strategy. It was the right thing to do.
And you guys were great pupils. Whether he remembered or not, you guys were doing it, right? He said, "Do it, let's do it."
Well, we did it.
Wow.
Yeah, we did. We did. Yeah.
God. And did you think Leo should have sat you guys more? I mean, because I don't think, I was talking to Billy about this, and he wasn't coming out of the lineup. My dad wasn't coming. You guys didn't want to come out of the lineup, right?
Well, that's what I've said to people many times. Look, I don't know of any of our players that if Leo had said, "Do you need a day off down the stretch?" None of us would have said, "No." I said, "No, man, I want to play. I'm here to play."
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Now, if you watch today's game, they get days off a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether playing all day games, maybe we should have a little. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Because if he had asked me, I would have said, "No, I'm going to play."
Yeah, you don't blame Leo, for playing you guys, because you guys, that's how you got there.
Oh no, no, not at all, not at all.
And I was talking to a bleacher bum, Mike Murphy, a longtime bleacher bum, and he was saying that you guys, and it's true. I looked at you had 4 double headers in a row one time. I don't know what year. It might have been 68. And you guys all played in all 8 games. Every one of you played in all 8 games. Is that amazing?
Yeah, now
and you won.
Up and say that it might have been good to have one of those off. But none of us really. Jeff, I don't think any of us expected to have any days off.
Right.
Yeah. I think we came to play, and that's what we thought we were supposed to do.
Yeah, right. 8 in a row. I mean, that's unbelievable in Chicago.
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you look at these guys; they're never playing in doubleheaders. I mean, they don't play them anymore, obviously. But you guys were a different breed. You were a different breed. That's how it was. You played. You didn't want to come out of the lineup, and who would want to come out of the lineup? So
no.
Yeah. Your 11 seasons, Don, with the Cubs, amazing 11 seasons. All you guys played so long together. And that's why Chicago loves you guys, that team, because they all knew you, and you guys were so a part of society, which was a little different today than back then.
Well, I think I've said this many times, Jeff, and I believe it from the depth of my heart. I've never played on a team or around a team in my career that had the same relationship between players and players and players and fans and players. I mean, it was just a remarkable deal, and we were so sad we couldn't win that thing for them, and for us. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And they were sad for you guys because of that. Yeah, that connection. When you got traded to the Cardinals, right? After 75, Don?
Yes, I did. Yes.
What'd that feel like going to St. Louis?
Well, St. Louis was okay with me. I really wished I didn't have to go anywhere, but it was just right. It was the right time. I did have a no trade deal. I mean, I had to approve any trade. So they kept me appraised of what all was going on. So I don't have any ill feelings. And I grew up in Arkansas, a Cardinal fan, so it wasn't a big deal for me to go to the Cardinals. It didn't turn out so hot, but then I came back to Chicago with the White Sox, and that's an interesting deal because I had seen your dad. I saw your dad do that, and it just didn't work, And he didn't. He never felt the same. And
no.
So
no, but it worked for you though. Yeah, go talk about that. Yeah,
it did. It did work for me, and I don't know what the difference is. Different time, I guess. When Bill Beck, Bing Devine, St. Louis called and said we've traded you to the White Sox, and here's Bill Beck's phone number. You need to give him a call, or something to that effect. And I'll never forget it when Bill Beck called when we talked. Of course, I love Bill Beck. I have to tell you, I love Bill Beck, but he's different. Yeah. He was different. But when I talked to Bill, I said, when do you want me to be there? And he said, you hadn't seen us play much, have you? And I said, no, not a lot. He said, we can't catch the ball very good. So I need you here as soon as you can get here. So anyway, he was a piece of work, boy.
And you were, when did he make you the player? You were player manager, right?
I was. I'm not sure that was smart, but yeah.
Well, tell me about that, because how did that happen? Yeah, how did that happen?
Well, I got there in '77, and then they had just really been good to me. And in 1978, they had a day for me at Comiskey Park, and then we had a crowd, and several of my former teammates came over that night. It was really a deal. And then late that year, 1978, I had signed a contract already with them for 78 and 79. And because back then we didn't sign too many multi-year contracts. I mean, none for me.
Right.
But 79, I was signed. I'd already signed a contract to play for them next year. In 79, Bill Beck called me in, and he said, you ever thought about managing? And I said, yeah, I have. Anybody's been in it long as I have, yeah, but I don't think I want to do that. And I said, when I'm through, I think I'm through, and go home and watch my kids play. But he said, well, I'm talking about the White Sox. And I said, no, Bill, I can't talk to you about the White Sox. I'm playing. I got a contract. I'm playing for you, and we have a manager, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk about that. And he said, okay. And he never said another word to me about it till the season was over. And he called me on the phone, and he said, okay, I don't have a manager now. Will you talk to me? And I said, well, yeah, I'll talk to you. So anyway, it was just one of those deals. And I flew down to Florida and Sarasota, and I was going to meet him at his motel where he was, and he was sitting out by the pool. And I went out there and sat beside him. And I guess you're aware, he had a wooden leg. He had one peg leg.
Yeah.
And, he was sitting there, and so as we talked, he sat down on the edge of the pool, took his leg off, and laid it beside him. And so finally he said, well, you gonna take it? And I said, yeah, we'll try it. And he said, okay, if I can't get out, come get me. And he flipped over backwards and went in the water. And I thought, what have I done? And, so anyway, I've had some interesting deals, boy. But
yeah, you sure have, man. Another one was, obviously, you were there for Disco Demolition Night, too, with Steve Dahl, right?
Oh, my gosh. Yes, I was. And,
what did you guys do? Just go back in the clubhouse?
Yeah, we did. I was the manager. And so we were playing Detroit, and Sparky Anderson was manager, and I tell you what that was. This is the honest truth. There was a promotion that worked too good. It was too good because we had about 50,000 fans there, and 25,000 of them were probably there to watch a doubleheader, and 25,000 were there for Disco Demolition. And but I'm telling you, the air, the smelled, foul, and I mean it was tough. It was bad, and before the game, by the time the game started, the fans were all chanting all together. Just disco sucks. Disco sucks. I mean, it was terrible. And you thought, oh my, what do I do now? So anyway, we played the game. And they were supposed to, between games of a doubleheader, they were going to take all these disco records that people had brought to get in at a reduced price, and they take them out to center field, and this DJ was going to come out and blow them up, Disco Demolition. So between games of the doubleheader, the fans were going nuts. The ones that were there for Disco Demolition were going crazy, and I tell you, they jumped as soon as the first game was over. They jumped over the stands. I guess there were 6,000 or 7,000 people out on the field, and so I made our guys. Well, I took all of our team. We went through the dugout to the dressing room and locked the door. And after we did, man, I didn't know what was going to happen. So after a good while, a phone rang in the clubhouse, and it was upstairs, and they called me and said the umpires want to see you and Bill Beck. And I said, well, okay, where's Bill? And they said he's out in the middle of the field. And so I said, okay, I'll see if I can find him. So I unlocked the door, ran out there in my uniform. He was standing at second base saying, would you please return to your seats? Would you please? I said, Bill, I don't think they hear you. And, anyway, I told him the umpires wanted to see us, and he said, well, we're not forfeiting this second game. And I said, I agree with that. So we went back in there, and the umpire said, no, we're not talking about a forfeit. We just want to suspend this second game to another day because it's just not going. And Bill said, no, we'll have this field ready. We'll be ready to go. He wasn't about to, and so they got the field ready after about an hour, and the umpires walked out from behind home plate, of course. Umpires walked out and took one foot on the field and said, field's unplayable, game's off. And the next day we were informed we forfeited. So it was wow. It was. I never warmed up. I warmed up around more Greek belly dancers that year than anything. I mean, Bill's, his job. He really felt his job was to entertain the fans,
right?
Until game time, and then he didn't want any part of it.
What a journey, Don. And then you go back home and you become Division I head coach for your alma mater. You at University of Mississippi, Ole Miss. Talk about that.
Well, I moved back actually to Memphis, which was an hour from Oxford, but Jake Gibbs, who's a good friend of mine and played with the Yankees. Jake Gibbs was the baseball coach at Ole Miss for 20 years, and he retired. And when he retired, several people asked me if I'd be interested in that, and I would. I said, yes, I love the school. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And Kevin, my younger one, had just played his sophomore year, so he actually had 2 years left. And so I did take that job and coached him, and we had a great time. Just didn't win quite enough. Talking about your dad and Becker, I was coaching this. I was living in Memphis. No, I don't know where I was living. Doesn't matter. I was coaching this team in my first year or so. I had a phone call midnight or whatever here, and it was Beck on the phone, and Ronnie was with him. And Beck said, hey, Ronnie and I are watching the College World Series. We've been looking for you. Where's your team? I said, well, you're going to have to wait a few years. Anyway, it was...
that's great, man.
That's actually kind of the relationship you had,
Yeah, right, exactly. And you did have good years at Ole Miss. You had some good records and got that program in shape. Yeah, man. And both your boys, Keith and Kevin, played there too, right? Both of them.
They did, and both actually played pro ball for a while. So
I know, which is amazing, Don. Which is so amazing to me because of the pressure, and me and Ronnie dealt with it different, and they it's not an easy thing, and but your boys got there, and what a feat, and that has a lot to do with the steadiness of the Kessingers.
My youngest son Kevin, his son Gray is actually on the Astros now. He's with the Astros.
I know.
Yeah,
amazing.
And so it's been a thrill. It's been a good show. It's been a thrill. In fact, Yankees and they're playing at Yankee Stadium today. In fact, I'm gonna get off.
Wow.
Shortly. But
yeah, right.
Anyway,
yeah, you got to go watch. Exactly. It's just amazing. Keith and Kevin, and then so Kevin Gray is Kevin's boy. And talk about your family. Like, how many grandkids do you have?
We had 2 boys and four grandkids, and just been great. Just been great, man.
Yeah. 3 generations of baseball, Don. Professional baseball.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Amazing. What a story. I got to tell you, Don. And then you also, you know John Grissom. You helped him with Calico Joe, I read. I didn't have to do much. He does all. I mean, he was really prepared. He wrote that thing. He knew. He called me and said, "If I send you a transcript, would you just read it? And if you make any changes you want to, I just want to make sure I'm not saying something that isn't true." And shoot, I didn't have to make many changes at all. Nothing really. Wow.
I think Ernie Banks.
Just the people you know.
Ernie Banks maybe. Yeah, and so anyway, it was. But he's really good at what he does, and so.
Yeah,
anyway.
Just the people you've come around and been a part of, and just that story though. I haven't read it, but I do want to read the book now. But it was about a guy getting obviously hit by a purpose pitch and ruined his career. A promising player, a Cubs player.
Correct. Yeah.
You remember when my dad got hit in '66 in the cheekbone?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh! When we ran up there to the ground where he was, I was sorry I ever went out there. Man, it looked terrible. And but he played the next day.
I know he played. He played in like 5 days later. It was amazing because he split his cheekbone.
I think he played the next day.
Probably felt like he did, right? Because he was back so soon. But he had that hitting streak at the time, and he got hit like on his 26th game, and then he was back in like 3 or 4 days, and he wore the flap for the first time, right? That's when you guys all started.
Oh, he did, yeah. That's right.
Going in that direction.
Yeah. Yep.
But it made me think about that pitch because, that could have been it, who knows what could have happened. Like, he's lucky
doubt.
It didn't.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But anyway, man, I got to say, Don, it's just amazing talking to you. So good to talk to you. And, and this is what I truly believe so much deep down, because as a kid, I remember you guys so much, and then seeing where your life has gone and with your kids and your family. If there were a Hall of Fame for the all-around best athlete, best human being, best family man, best husband and father and grandfather, you'd be in it with the rest of the best. Billy Williams would be there with you too, man.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You've had a hell of a rock-solid, steady life, Don. Don Kessinger is as steady as they come, and that ain't easy to be, man. And seeing, everything. I mean, and seeing the solidness of Gray now playing. I mean, like you at short, and just really amazing life that you and Carolyn led. It's truly a deeply connected and powerful family baseball story, every part of it, Don. And it's just an honor to talk to you right now.
And we were so blessed to play with the people we did and with the families that we were around. So just know how we feel.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, tell everyone I said hello, and have a great time watching Gray today. Hope they beat up on the Yankees, and love to the family, Don. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks again for being on.
Appreciate you so much,
okay.
Man. Okay. Take care.
Thanks, Don. All right. Talk to you later, pal. All right. See you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
That moment was brought to you by the Audio Suite, a sound recording, design, editorial, and mixing company for film, broadcast, advertising, music, podcast, audiobooks, and multimedia industries. The Audio Suite provides high-quality services at cost-effective solutions to meet your post-production needs. Voiceover, narration, ADR, sound design, sound effects, editorial and sweetening, recording, mixing, mastering, audio restoration, and more. The audio suite will get you to the finish line on time and on budget. Steve Harrison, owner, designer, mixer, has decades of experience and has worked with various clients from HBO Films to Penguin Random House, to us, Santo Films. When we needed post-production mastering for our independent film Dead in 5 Heartbeats, the audio suite was our go-to place. Steve is knowledgeable, reliable, and always delivers the highest quality. This episode you're listening to right now was mixed and mastered by Steve at the audio suite. Go to www.audiosuitestudios.com. We highly recommend.
Crackerjack.
This is Bill. Being recorded.
Billy.
Jeff, how you
Santo.
doing?
You're my crackerjack call, buddy.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm giving my best shot, buddy. I'm looking forward to this.
How you doing, man?
I am doing great. I'm beautiful here in Chicago today. Sunny out.
Cool. Good.
Getting excited for the Cubs game at 2:00. Been
Yeah, how
following
about
them
that,
all
man?
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
They're
They got
fun
life
teams
here,
now.
man. Yeah, it's amazing. They're coming back, and they got a solid team now.
They're enjoyable. They play hard, and that's all you can ask for of a team.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
they do play hard. And speaking of, man, I want to let people know that you were my executive producer on This Old Cub. And, man, you did a great job. We started with nothing, man, and I got you involved. And before you know, we got some money raised, and, you know, the movie's history, man.
It was a blessing. I mean, I was so happy that I'll be attached to that for the rest of my life, and just to have the opportunity to work with you and to see how you went from putting this thing together from nothing and made it into a beautiful piece for people to see your father in a light that I don't think they could have ever seen him before unless you created this. But I think it's a masterpiece. So I enjoyed it so much, and I'm glad I got to be a part of it, more than just raising the money, just traveling with you, being able to, you know, go down and visit with your dad and watch us put this together and seeing how proud he was of you.
Thank you, man. That means a ton, pal.
Oh, it was great.
Cry. It's yeah, and our trips, we went. Oh God, we had so many. When we distributed that thing, I mean, how involved it was. But we traveled to we traveled everywhere. Des Moines, Wisconsin.
We were on a limited budget. We were Des Moines, right, all through Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, up through Madison, come back down, and through Illinois. Always, obviously, we did the Arcadia Theater in Highland Park, and yeah, it was just like, I think we went a year, maybe even longer than that, of nonstop promoting and putting in theaters and ballparks in South Bend, Indiana. We played the game after a minor league ball game in South Bend, and we're fortunate enough to have the head coach at Notre Dame introduce us. Yeah. That was nice.
That was cool. Yeah, and the South Bend, they played the movie, put a big screen up at the stadium after the game. That was amazing, right? I mean,
that was amazing.
Yeah.
Remember we met at Wrigley. We boxed everything up from Linda's, and unfortunately, you fell into a pit in 10 feet.
Can you believe that? I can't believe I survived.
I didn't know. Every time I go to change my oil now, I'll never forget that. You stepped backwards, and I couldn't see you.
Oh, God, Billy.
Like 6 feet, and I think you broke your elbow.
No, I didn't. I thought I broke my back. I mean, that was, you know, we can laugh about that now, but it was that actually let people know it's where my dad used to park at the ballpark. It was
Mike Rizzo's parking lot. Right. It was Rizzo's parking lot. Right.
Rizzo's Park. It's not there anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where my dad parked when he played. And you got the van. We got a bunch of T-shirts, and we're going down to South Bend on our tour. And you backed the van over one of those oil holes where they go down and they do the oil changes. And when stupid me, you know, I couldn't get in the back to see what the shirts looked like. I'm like, move it forward. And when you moved the van forward, both of us
scary.
didn't know that I just disappeared into the 6 feet hole. And I remember when I stepped, I knew, I'm like, oh my God, I'm stepping into a black hole. And I went down, but I got to say this, my athletic ability, I landed on my feet like a cat. I don't know how, but if I would have face planted, I wouldn't even,
What a start to that trip. That's how we started. Oh my God.
We did. And then we wind up, we go to South Bend, and then we went to.
Yeah, we're like a bunch
I don't
of
remember the route.
You, me, I had Nicole, Anthony's friends. I mean, we had everybody working for us,
Yeah,
we stapled everything around the ballparks at every bar. The kids would go in, and every phone booth and a pole and everything. It was, we just self-promoted that thing like nonstop.
And then me and you went to the Field of Dreams, which was, what an experience that was for me and you. We roll up there, and no one's there, right? And we met the lady who owned that house, and she gave us a bat and a ball and a mitt, and me and you went out there and took batting practice.
It was phenomenal. Remember when we went into the cornfields and the pictures coming out like we were the ghost, and it was kind of magical. I mean, and they took, I don't know, maybe 100 DVDs and sold them for us while we were there.
Right.
And I had a connection because I knew people from Dyersville from playing ball in college with them. Actually, Jude Milbert, who was a good friend of mine, was in the movie. He was an extra.
Right.
You hits for us a Cole. Yeah.
Wow. That was fun, man. And just everything that you did. I mean, it was to see where we started and how it ended, and the work that went into it. It was beautiful, and it couldn't have happened without help from guys like you, man. That really.
Well, if it wasn't really for you and then your dad, I mean, how do you get Mike Ditka to come and introduce him at the Chicago Historical Society, and
right.
When we did the grand opening of the movie, and just to get that venue and to pack it and to see the reaction of so many people that came out to see that, it was really good because the movie was so good. I mean, it just but it was nice to see the people that were willing to that picture was still in Mike Ditka's restaurant with him and your dad. Yeah.
That was to see those two guys up there at the Historical Society standing side by side. That was amazing. That was very cool, man.
The 60s were powerful. I mean, it went from, our mom all home at dinner, and it was, that like kind of went from that leave it to Beaver attitude to the, late 60s it was chaotic. It was a different time from the beginning to the end. And 69 was thrown right in the mix. I mean, so it was totally, a different vibe than when, watching your dad with, Dick Ellsworth and Bertel and the catching, and when, Ernie was playing shortstop, and then they actually got good. I mean, they got really good.
You remember all that, right? Because that's the thing. You're older than me and Ronnie, and that's the stuff that's so cool. That calling you and talking about that, from going from This Old Cub back to like the Dickas, and because in that era with Ditka and everybody, Bobby Hall, but those guys all knew each other in the city, like even Brian Piccolo.
Absolutely. It was incredible because they were, they had a connection of being iconic sports legends, but they had to work. They couldn't just live off their salaries. They had to go and work, in the off season and do things in the off season to, nobody had an agent, so they had to brand themselves. They couldn't just sit around and do nothing. And it was, your dad had the popularity and he had a voice, which a lot of these guys were shy that I met on the clubs. Right. I mean, I had Billy Williams and a Don Kessinger, which were fantastic athletes, but I think he led, and I think he pulled them all along with him and helped them out tremendously because he had the voice and he wasn't afraid. Yeah. And a lot of those guys, I think, were a little bit timid, and and management had them where they wanted them until free agency came about. But
I think those guys,
like, except for your dad started in Shabona Park where I played my ball. He started the Kenny Hubs League. When Kenny died, your dad made Kenny Hubs was a league at the Chicago ballparks. Once before you got to Little League, you went into, they named it Kenny Hubs then, and then you went to Little League. Yes.
Oh wow, man! I didn't even know that. Now, do you remember when Kenny Hubs died?
Yes, I remember. You know, only because I wasn't aware of it until my dad had told me, and how crushing it was for your dad. And then, you know, it's amazing when one bad thing happens and then the next good thing comes out of it. Then the next thing I know, we're Glenn Beckert's over with your dad, and you know, and just the cycle came 360, and then they became best friends, and you know, played ball together and put that magic. I thought your dad was going to have to play second base at one time.
God, you know, that's so. I'm so glad you're going there on that, because I was talking to Don Kessinger, and he was saying that he got signed with the Cubs right after, you know, Hubs passed away. He remembered coming to the Cubs and the 64 and feeling that vibe, and 65 when he became the starting shortstop. It's like, yeah, I mean, he even received the Kenny Hubs Award later in his life. But people forget about Kenny Hubs and what a talent he was, but also what a great person he was. And if you think about those, you know, what the team they were putting together then, but my dad was really close to Hubs, like you said. And so then Glenn to come along and at first he was probably like, you know, I don't need to get close to the second baseman, you know, and then they become best
friends. He was so tight with Kenny Hubs, and it was such a huge setback. I'm sure he hadn't processed the whole thing yet. And, you know, fortunately, Glenn was one of those guys that how do you not love the guy? I mean, you know, it's just, you know, he just kind of fit right in, and I'm sure he had to bridge that gap of taking over for Kenny. But, you know, he didn't know him. He wasn't, you know, he was just going out to bust his ass to play ball the hardest he could.
Right.
He did.
Yeah, all those guys, man. What a group. And then Kessinger and Beckert at second. I was talking to Don about that. It's just the double how they worked so hard at it. And just those guys were so different. Like Kessinger Don learned how to switch hit when he came to the bigs.
Yeah, who could do that? Yeah, that's amazing. You know, if you don't go up with it, you know, you and just decide to do it. And it was a perfect fit for Wrigley. I mean, he was a perfect leadoff man.
Yeah, he was, man. And it's just all that. And you got to know all those guys over the years, and what a great bunch we've always talked about that they wore.
The reason I got to know them so well is because, you know, my dad and your dad were together all the time. I was 14 in 69, and they, not just my dad, the Cubs didn't do anything on or off the field without each other. So if we were going out to dinner, or your mom and my mom were together all the time too. Let's say, you know, Saturday afternoon, you got 6 of the Cubs playing football. Your dad was a quarterback. My dad had Ronnie Mayer was a quarterback on the other side. They played every Saturday behind it at our house. And it was supposed to be a touch game. Well, no, these guys are too competitive. It was crazy. They were going at each other like, you know how aggressive my dad is and your dad is. They didn't like each other at the end. I mean, he was, you know, your dad wanted to win at quarterback, and Ronnie Mayer was an all-state quarterback, and they just sat back there and just sat there. Our eyes were popping out of our head because nobody was touching anyway. They were coming in with stiff arms and forearms, and it was like a 6-on-6 game every Saturday.
Every Saturday in the fall, right? After the
fall, right? Once the season ended, right? They would come out and they had their little stocking caps on and, you know, the shorts and everything, and they just went at it like animals for a couple hours.
What a different time. Yeah.
I mean, and they were always together. I mean, they were always together, whether it was that or, you know, I mean, your father held the chains for my high school football team. My dad and him. And you'd look up and you'd look over there, and, you know, at halftime they'd come in because you're always on the opposing side, and they would tell us everything that's going on. So your dad took the offense and would tell us, you know, everything that the defense was doing. And my dad would go in and talk to the defense and tell them everything the offense was doing. And we, you know, Mariani didn't miss a beat. He didn't miss a beat.
You know, Ricky and I touched on that, but that is so good, Billy. I was wondering, like, there had to be something good. You know, were they moving the chains a little? You know, giving an extra yard.
All the information. Mariani didn't say a word. They came in. The dad huddled us up, and my dad huddled the other guy and say, "Hey, this is what they're doing. This is, you know, who they're going to, and, you know, what type of plays they're running. If they're whatever it was. And it was just a huge advantage. I mean, we lost 2 games in 4 years. It was just a huge advantage for us. And, you know,
that's
kind of missed that when we were on the road. But, yeah, it was really fun. Yeah,
that is amazing. And my dad would come into the locker room at
halftime, every halftime. Well, no, at the home games, yes. So he had Artie's senior year and my senior year. He was him and my dad held the chains.
That's phenomenal, man.
You had that connection with Holy Cross because your dad had the original Ron Channel Baseball School, which I think was 67, 68.
Wow.
Which was packed, and all the coaches were getting paid there. And then, you know, thank God. I mean, when they had the strike, that's where they practiced. They hid inside at our gym, and then they would, you know, shoot hoops with us. And they couldn't have been nicer. I mean, they were like friends, not like ball players. They were so accessible. There wasn't anything they wouldn't do for anybody.
Right.
I mean,
sure were, man.
Yeah, it was just so. They made it so easy to be around them, where they could have been, you know, like an athlete. I'm not saying all athletes are today, but it was a different vibe.
It sure was. It sure was, man. They were regular guys, you know, that just related to society, middle class society. And I feel like Holy Cross, man. I was telling Ricky this. I was there so many times as a kid. I was just like, and Frank Mariani to me was kind of like this god. He was like this coach. Did he coach all 3 sports?
He coached football and baseball. That was it. And he was great at both.
He was.
Yeah.
And you just remember the presence. I mean, those kind of high school coaches, but he was a name that always stood out. And then I got to, you know, I played for his son later on in semi-pro when he had a team. But the Marianis and Holy Cross, I was telling Ricky, I thought I was going to go to Holy Cross because we were always there.
Yeah. You know, back in the day, yeah, I enjoyed because we were 8 years apart. I'm not sure, so I'm going to be 68 next week. But it was like, you know, I got to go. I know I went to Ronnie's games, but then I got to go to some of your games, and then you and I reconnected when you went to St. Leo's. So
that nightmare.
Yeah,
I
well,
remember.
You know, we live and learn, right?
Yeah. Well, that was funny because it was just a tough time. I was 17. I was one of those young guys. So going to college at 17, you're going, and that was a Division II baseball school, and it's like those guys were like men, right? I'm like, I'm not even there yet, right? And so
I saw them. They didn't look like they should be in college to me. Oh my God!
I know. It was like St. Leo's like one of those teams. Like, come on, you sure a couple of these guys aren't 23 and 24? I mean,
it was a semi-pro team. It many semi-pro teams.
It was.
Oh my God.
And then you were working down there with your dad, and that was so good because I got to, you know, have at least some family for a little bit because I was out in the boonies, and we had fun, man. Yeah, got it. That was something else, man. And just going back to like 69, I want to go back there with you. What was that like for you? What was that season like? I mean, when they fell apart at the end.
It was, you know, the best of the world and the worst of the world. It was so emotional for me as a 14-year-old. I'm living the dream. I'm captain of every team I'm on. I'm, you know, playing baseball, football, basketball, experiencing everything. And then I have the connection to your dad. And, you know, it was just incredible to go to the ball games and to watch them and to be able to go in the field and the locker room and be around all the guys. And the guys nothing changed. I mean, you knew every year who was going to be leading off, batting second, third, right down the line for like, you know, a 6-7 year stint. Everything was the same. And the things that changed the most were, you know, they got successful. And it kind of changed the mood of some of the players. I believe, you know, it was your dad holding that together and being so young at the time. It was like he was young as a man, but he was old, experienced as a ball player. And that experience really came through in
10 years.
69, you know, when you get on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And, you know, it was just, you know, it was a great time. I mean, I'm talking about, Jeff, 69. There was you know, Armstrong walked on the moon July 20th. Nobody knew it in Chicago. All we cared about were the Cubs. Nobody could care less about it. What was going on in the world? Nobody cared. We're in first place. We've never been, we're going from start to finish. My mom and your mom came home from opening day when George Altman hit that home run.
No, that was Willie Smith. Yeah, Willie Smith.
Willie Smith. And Willie Smith. And here we go. They go, this is going to be it. This is going to be the year.
Yeah, because they came off a good 68. And when going to Armstrong Walk on the Moon, my dad tells that story. He was playing in Philly, and he hit a home run just as Armstrong, and it went on the scoreboard that Armstrong, man lands on the moon. And my dad said he got back to the dugout and he went to back and he's like, man, that's the first time I ever got a standing ovation hitting a home run in a Disney ballpark. He's like, Ron, look at the scoreboard, man. Come on.
You got the first man ever walk on the moon. That might have something to do with the ovation.
And you guys are probably watching the game too.
You don't get a standing ovation in Philly.
Right? Is that funny, man?
My God, it's unbelievable.
Oh. And then when it didn't happen, man, because I remember there was a piece of jewelry. Just as a kid, I remember seeing this. Your dad wrote. It was years after, and I remember I'm like, Mom, what's this? And it was a piece of gold jewelry. I don't know if it was a bracelet or a watch that your dad engraved about '69, saying we're going to win it this year. And oh man,
it was. I still don't know why God does certain things, but for whatever reason, those guys are more beloved than any team that'll ever come. It's a shame that they got that national spotlight to go to a playoff in the World Series, because that's what you needed, like Brooks Robinson got, or any of those guys, can showcase their talent, but you had to get there. And I think, unfortunately, day games and playing every day took a toll on them. I mean, I don't know that there's any other way to explain it, because they were so high and had so much adrenaline, maybe too much. It just air came out of the balloon on the West Coast trip.
Yeah. Also the Mets were they were 37-11. I mean, you got to say that's pretty freakish. So,
but the state of our families, my family, and it happened so fast. It's like, okay, can we have a redo? No, it's over. You got to be kidding me. It was August 8th, August 9th, we're 13 and a half games up.
Yeah.
I mean, can we just go 500 and finish this thing out?
And it's weird because, like, I was a kid and I remember the feelings of that year. I remember being on the field with the bleachers throwing, change on the field. Me and Ronnie would pick it up, and Ronnie would tell me later that, the change was because they were throwing pennies and nickels and dimes at the away team during batting practice. The bleacher bubs.
Yeah.
I thought,
they were as big as the Beatles. They were as big as anything that you could, ever imagine. They were, they were stars, and they were in one of the greatest cities in the world. I mean, if you're going to be, to me, if I were going to be a star, I'd want to be in Chicago. The people don't forget you, and they love you. I mean, that's the way it happened. But you get what you give. Your dad gave everything. You can't be a diabetic and go out there and hide that and play at a height and with the intensity and the ferocity that he played with. And, leaders get the good and the bad. So when you're a leader, and we had the, how do you
remember the Don Young?
The next day and say, what did Ron do with Don Young? I said, you guys don't know anything what you're talking about. Nothing but except what the papers are going to say. But the guy loves Don Young. He supported Don Young. He wanted nothing but the best for this guy. And they're playing ball. It's not, it's intense. That's how you it was a terrible, it was tough situation to get losing, and it never turned around. And then I think they were.
That was July 8th. It was early, and they still came back and played better. But I think that there's something that happened there, just the vibe that changed a little bit, But I feel like what you're saying, your dad and your mom were on that road trip, and so was my mom. So, and that was difficult because just looking back at it, I mean, the whole year of not winning, I think that just lived, and them never getting there just kind of lived with us our whole life, right? And then people would go, what about the Don Young game?
Right. For your dad, it could have been any other team but New York, too. I mean,
right. Yeah.
I hated those guys. And I mean, I remember when I got hit in the face from Fisher. I mean, I remember.
Yeah.
I think my dad was on that trip. I mean, he was just, I think he came back like in 4 days. He was on his hitting streak. And
that was in '66. Yeah, when he got hit in the face and split his jaw. Can you believe that? Yeah, that's amazing. And then you're talking about '69 when they actually did go back to Shea Stadium, and that's when they were like a game ahead or a game. They were like right even with the Mets in September, like September 8th, and they were having a tough road trip. And who's the lefty for the Mets that hit my dad on purpose with the black cat? That was the black cat.
Yeah, that was the black cat
time. And who was the lefty for him? Koosman. And Koosman even said it, later on. Yeah, I hit him on purpose. I didn't want to hurt him, but I thought I broke his wrist. And my dad only missed a game there. But that was a point that Hank Aguirre said, why didn't we fight the Mets then? Why didn't we go out? They hit our number one guy here, our captain, and we didn't do anything. And it's almost kind of like, I think the Don Young, you can go back to the Don Young game there and go, maybe they got cold feet after that whole Don Young sensationalized stuff that went on. It's almost like New York got in the Cubs' head. Psychologically, they got to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They definitely did because, between the Cubs and even Baltimore, there was no comparison in the talent level. I don't know how they got through it. I know they had great pitching that we didn't know these guys were going to be Tom Seaver and Nolan Ryan, and these guys are going to be superstars. But still, everything, like I said, the stars were aligned for New York.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy on that. And let's go and jump to I was talking to Ricky. When did my dad and your dad meet? Was that like 62, 63? What was it, you think?
I think it was 62. And so when they came up, and I don't know the whole backstory to, how they ended up getting together, but I know
it was some charity event. I do know, I did read an article going back on a lot of stuff that in the last 10 years, I'm like, I get more into my dad's story actually going back to when he was a kid. And I remember reading an article that your dad and him met when they at a charity event your dad was doing. And there's this guy that was kind of hustling my dad for a few months of taking him to different card things. And my dad felt at first he was too nice to the guy, and then the guy was just controlling him. And your dad kind of stepped in and said, no more of this.
Yeah, that's what. They got along great. They had relationship, and they were able to, make it work for, your dad was so young at the time. I think my dad was 10 years a senior.
Yeah.
And, they just, two Italian guys from Chicago that, introduced him, and your dad knew so many people, and, they would just be able to go out and start different venues. Like when they did the pizzas, your dad did the pizzas.
Yeah. Talk about that, man. Yeah.
Pizza in Wrigley Field. I mean, it was unheard of, right?
Right.
And
how did that happen? Like did your dad make that deal with the Cubs and say, okay, we're going to bring the pizza thing in here?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just try. We won't charge any. We'll just make it whatever. We're going to make. And then they had a picture of the ball player on the box, and they did a promo
with like all the players on the box. It was called Pro's Pizza. But then, where was the pizza place? Was in Park Ridge, the actual takeout place?
Billy? It was on Northwest Highway, right on Northwest Highway. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been there for years. Oh my God, just so many stories on it. God. I mean, how would you like to have Ron Santo deliver your pizza? He used to deliver the pizzas.
I know.
To the house. The night you went over there? Oh, yeah. We'd go over there, and Michael Jean would be working back there, and I forget what guy, Philly Deans he lived there for a month. He was hiding out from some guys from Milwaukee or something, out guys. So Philly, I go, what's Philly Dean still doing here? He goes, he can't go out of the restaurant right now. Oh, great.
And then you had just the families, like you had who was involved in the making the pizza, Billy?
I think it was your dad and Louis.
Louis Benelli, yeah. So the Benellis, yeah. So it's just,
they had their own restaurant, but the pizza just took off. Went into Jewel, went into grocery stores, sold out. So it was just incredible. I mean, it was just like I just remember seeing all the activity around the house, and that everybody had to go, and he got like 20 guys all the mayors, all the kids, they all go to Dallas, Illinois, rent a huge warehouse, and they set it up, and they just make boxes and boxes. Because they had to make them those small ones, pizzas.
Yeah,
and,
right. That's the personal. They were like invented the personal pan back then.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
basically.
and they said everybody, and they were good. I liked them. They were good.
Yeah. I ate them all the time. Hell, they didn't have any pizzas at the ballpark.
Okay, you got Ron Santo, you got Ron Santo travel agency. You had, it was just, he was out there working his butt off and still playing ball, and it's a lot of responsibility. Yeah,
and it sure was, man. And but they had to do that. I mean, they didn't make that much money in the beginning, at ball, and so it was great. Like your dad got him away from that guy that was trying to get him the card shows, and then
how those two together. I mean, my dad would have your dad's back, and vice versa. So they helped each other as much as my dad protected or had your dad's back at the ballpark. And your dad.
Talk about that a little bit, because you had seats right off of third base, right?
Right off. Yeah, we're right in with your dad, right at where the coaching box was, and we go every game. I mean, we would get there so early. Literally, Andy Frayne said, "Sir, you can't come in." He goes, "We're coming in." He goes, "And I will knock this kick down the little turnstile over. We're coming in." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "We're coming in now." He goes, "We're not waiting." And then we'd get there, and then we'd get there, and your dad had the love-hate relationship with some of those guys, fans, and they'd start calling them whatever, pizza boy or whatever, and then you would just see my dad get up, go right wherever it was in earshot, and he always would grab them right by the shirt, lift them right off their seat. And he just told them up, so he said, "Anybody else around here who's got something to say, I don't want to keep coming back and forth." He goes, "Stops now." And that was it.
Oh, yeah, there was a guy one time, I don't know if he was throwing change at my dad or something. That was the
same thing.
Yeah. Oh, and your dad just, all right, time to leave. Time to get out of here.
Yeah, I think your dad got him, too, because my dad knocked him into the field. There's an article in Sports Illustrated on it.
Yeah, because my dad went to the
field. Your dad knocked him back into the stands. And then
my God, man. It was, and those were... That was the early years. There weren't many people in the stands, and the ones that came that got drunk, they got out of control. It's a different time, man. So free game. I think my dad jumped in the stands one time. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a myth, but you hear stories like that.
Going back then, you had a Sunday doubleheader almost every Sunday at home.
Right.
There was nobody hardly there before WGN took over and made it a superstation, and they got popular. And then it was off to the race. But before that, I mean, we'd get there. We'd each have 100 foul balls. Me and Ricky and Ivy and Ronnie, because we'd go wherever you wanted for batting practice. You just fill up your jersey. You used to bring ball bags and stuff them in there.
That's hilarious. But you talk about that protection of just, looking at, that's when the time, because I grew up right in that. From day one, man, I just felt you guys. I told Ricky, you guys were like my older brothers. I mean, really, even it's like going over to your house and all the stuff we do. Your garage was like a sporting shop, you had the park right behind it. It was just so much to do. Me and Ronnie were just like, we just it was great to know that we had this extended, huge family with you guys, and then you had your cousins, Jimmy Pullano, and all, then the Bonellis, and then we had the Matarices. It was just.
Yeah, we were all together. You guys were so much younger, but then you had the connection with Michael, so Terry got to play with Michael and Ronnie, and wiffle ball and all the games. And how cheating were? I mean, you have the two oldest kids against the two youngest kids. That's how. Yeah,
Michael and Ronnie against me and Terry, and it was just crazy. And we beat them one time, and I think Ronnie chased Terry back home with a canoe paddle because we beat him one time. So. I think like Ricky was talking about, we had home runs, like we would count the home runs. I think Ronnie hit one summer like 350 home runs.
Oh my! So it was from your dad down, it was so competitive because you remember. I mean, he loved all sports. He loved to play football. He had the hockey rink in the back.
Yeah.
He did tennis. I mean, I remember Ricky came home. I go, what happened? He goes, he was smiling. Ear to ear. I go, I beat him 6-1, 6-1. He goes, he threw a racket at me and I had to leave. He did that. He goes, he wanted to come out. He said, come on, play tennis with me, because he just kicked his butt pretty good at ping pong downstairs, Ricky did. And he said, come on now, we're going to go out and play tennis. Real. And Ricky said, I just beat him pretty good. And he goes, and the racket's like helicoptering over my head. And he goes, I got the hell out of there.
That's funny. But you guys, see, that's the thing. That's how it went with us. It was that people say, "Oh, that's a great." No, that's how we lived. It was that's how we lived.
I used to love to come to your house during football season because I think it was you that liked the Vikings and Ronnie liked the Steelers.
Oh yeah, love the Vikings.
And that was like a mad fight every football season.
Love the Vikings. I don't know why I love them so much.
I was a Viking guy too, because I go, I'm with this AFC bullshit and all this. And I love that you like the Vikings.
How can you not like that team? They had Fran Tarkenton, the Purple People Eaters.
It was great.
Chuck Foreman. They were amazing, right? But they were kind of like the Cubs.
Won.
Yeah, never won. Or kind of like the Cubs. Why am I picking? Yeah, exactly. Story of our life. Oh my God.
The competitive. I think that's what thrived and got us to be successful. I think most of my friends and like that life of experience through the '60s was, I don't think anybody was really outstanding student, but what they had was personality, drive, and couldn't outwork us. You could be smarter, you could do this, but I mean, when it got down to time to go to work, we went to work. When it came time to play, we played. But it almost felt
like the pecking orders. Like we got to learn how to behave inside a big room. Like who was in the room, all that kind of stuff that people don't.
Well, Jeff, isn't that the truth? Like when you ran This Old Cub, I knew I was the Indian the chief. Back in the day, I could have been the chief. So you had to learn how to be in those scenarios, whether you're like when you're playing for Glenbrook South, or when you're the captain, or growing up and you're starting as a sophomore. So we all did those different roles, and it's nice to know the lowest role to the highest role, because then you can adapt and you can have empathy for the guy who's just starting out. And I think
totally,
your dad was a good captain.
Yeah, and I think also even in the clubhouse, just knowing like when to be quiet. You're around guys like Durocher. You know how to behave just instinctively, right? Because
it's instinctive.
That's the world you're growing up.
That's taught.
It's not, because you're in a larger than life world, right? So for most people, they go into those places, they're like, oh my God, look at Leo Durocher, Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, So that was our life, and that did rub off.
Both personalities were so big that when things went good, they the guy said oh God, I part of Ron's deal. I'm doing great. And when things went bad, he said, well, that was Pullano's or Santo's fault. You're the leader. You don't get credit for when you get the wins. 100%. When you get the losses, you get the blame.
100%, man. They had giant personalities, and that's the thing that I remember, because I'm the youngest in the bunch at the time, right? But you remember feelings. You remember how you feel around it. And I just loved telling Rick, just love that energy that was us, was the Pullanos, was, my dad, and Ronnie even had this ton of energy, right? And people didn't realize it. Now he's kind of quiet, but boy.
Oh, he was a whirlwind. He was, I mean, it was. Yeah, it was so much fun, and I mean, and I don't want to change the subject either, but I think that with all that going on, just think, you talk about being quiet. Our mom just sat there and took care of us like we were kings. That is, like we were kings. Treated us like we were kings. Washed our stuff. So they were just sitting there, and they knew their role, and they did it so good. Yeah, we're so lucky to have them, and they're so lucky to have each other. It was just that was something that goes unsaid sometimes, and it was really kind of the core of what was going on, because without them, the whole thing, I think, would have collapsed back in the 60s.
Yeah, and I was talking to Carolyn Kessinger. She's the first crackerjack for Don's thing. And, she was talking about she would go to every game. And my mom didn't go to many games, but my mom did other things, right? It was like almost kind of like there was a bigger tent going on with my mom and your mom and other things to take care of, that it just, the world was a little different. And that's probably why she wasn't at so many games. But but she was.
Jeff, your mom
I don't know.
had,
She made it real.
Was,
yeah.
The house. No, there were so many things going on at the house. Even on a game day, there were people all over. Yeah, she had responsibilities that we couldn't even fathom as men. I mean, she had, like you were the youngest, and there were guys like me bringing high school and college buddies over.
Yeah.
Old enough to drink and sitting out there, and they had to be kind of supervised.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that was always going on, man. You're right. It was something else. And even going I remember the first time I played in a real baseball league, because obviously you're just playing at Wrigley and spring training. But the first league I got was Shibona Park with the Mayors. They lived right down the street, right? What was that field?
Right. Yeah, they were. Yeah, they lived right in the corner.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, and they had a family of how many kids?
10. 10. Yeah. So all 18 years apart, 10 kids.
How did you guys get to know them? How did they come into the fold too? That's another family that was great.
My dad and Ronnie are cousins through my grandmother and Jay's grandmother, and my dad played fullback senior year at St. Mel's, and Ronnie was the starting quarterback.
Oh,
and
wow, man.
Uncle Louie was the starting halfback, and Lefty Bettis, who played for the Packers, was the other halfback. They had a great team.
Wow. Okay, it makes sense now. Yeah, but that, and just all those families and all those kids that different ages. It was just, it was something else, man. And then now it's like later in life, you're like, oh, where is everybody?
What happened? The difference, like for your mom and my house and theirs, the door never closed. There was no lock on the front door.
You
didn't have to call. Say, I'm on my way over. It was just like, oh, all right, they're here. Pullano's here. Judy's here. Okay, just get out a pound of ham, a pound of cheese, Italian bread, and here you guys go. Go out and swim, and when you're done, go swim.
Right? Yeah.
When you're done.
What was? It was nonstop. Winter was nonstop. Ice rink, snowmobiling. Summer was baseball. And so, and then you got the fall, the football. You're right. Everything was geared around a season. What player? I mean, you had Pepitone's glove, right? Did you like? I mean, when Joe Pepitone, what did you think of Pepitone? I mean, was there a favorite player you had?
I was. It was 71, 72-ish, back then.
Yeah.
At the end.
And,
so he was at the house, and I had met him, through your dad and my dad. He knew I had played first base, and he had told me to go out to the car, and there was something on the front seat for me. So I was going to back it out of your driveway because somebody had to get out. And when I went there to get it, it was like, wow, it was baseball glove, and it said, to Bill Pullano. And I have to go on record and say, the messiest car I did ever get in my life. The guy was, Jeff, there was no gas pedal. There was just a post when I go to back out in the Cadillac. No gas. I mean, I forget who he was, some Playboy model at the house, your mom's house.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. No gas. I go, and it was great. I got the glove, but I'm going, oh my God, this guy, this car's a mess.
Pepitone, man, I remember me and Ronnie would go to the airport, pick up my dad, and there's Pepitone. We said one time Ronnie got a IOU, what was it, Wii magazine, and his girlfriend was on the cover, and we're like, oh my God. And remember Ronnie's bringing the magazine like, hey, Peppy, got this. Oh yeah, Ronnie. It's like, just that kind of.
Oh yeah.
Pepitone. He was the guy. Like he drove. I remember when he drove his motorcycle into the clubhouse.
Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. We have Mary Louise and Judy versus having no wife. I mean, he could do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and he did. It was like he was like I couldn't believe. Yeah, he was a great guy. I mean, he was just came at a good time. He's a good ball player, and he had that New York affiliation.
Probably could have been a much better player if he was more disciplined. Like
no, he was not.
Yeah. He was. Durocher got on it one time. I remember that. But what do you think? What did you think of Leo, man?
I never got to know him. I just knew him through the hearing things at the house, doing certain things, and being a tough Italian guy, and us having started to have success, and I just thought it was a kind of a combination of having really, really good players, and I thought he was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time. So I never thought of him as anything other than being able to hold it together after the disaster of the cows of coaches and all the other nightmares the Cubs has had coming through. And it's, for a while, it's funny, Jeff. When you're winning, it covers up a lot of sins, and when you start to lose, it's a different things come out. So I didn't. Yeah. I guess because my dad had, when you had Ron Santo Day in August, it was like, I know my dad and Durocher got into it, and I guess so. I never appreciated. So I was always never thought of him that highly. Because, he did it. Yeah, that he kind of got a little insane towards the end, Durocher. But I remember as a kid, me and Ryan being around. He was always cool, man. He was that get out of the dugout when the game started. But I always felt the presence around him. He was, you knew he was the boss, right? And I've talked to enough guys now on this podcast, Billy and Don, and they liked the way he came in. And I even think my dad did too. I think at the end it just got a little ugly. Right. Yeah, I'm sure they had it. Like, Jeff, look what they were used to. It was terrible. Yeah. I mean, it was. I think they had more talent and could have had a better, seasons. But because of the coaching and all the mismanagement, I think their upper management was not very good. But, I think so too. I was just a kid. I don't know. I just exactly, man. But I think Leo, it's like 69, 68, 69. They started the divisions. Otherwise, hey, there's 10 teams. One team goes to the World Series from each week. Crazy. That's pretty crazy. Crazy, man. I think Leo brought that fame too. I mean, everyone knew who Leo Durocher was, man. He was like a movie star at that time. People don't realize he really. I mean, he was on the Munsters and all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, with the Dodgers. How about the Dodgers? He was with he was on with the Dodgers or whatever. Exactly. I'm trying to think of it. Brady Bunch, Giants. Or something. Yeah, man. He was. But he was a star. He was a. He really was. And I'm sure your dad and those guys appreciated. Yeah. There's a guy, he was doing it back in the 30s. Dude, he was on the Gas House Gang. I mean, he had so much history behind him. Coming to the Wrigley, it was like, wow, So, anyway, man, it was just great stuff. Great talking to you, man. Hey, Jeff, I hope sit back and, there's certain nights when if I'm even feeling a little bit low, whatever, all I got to do is think about that those days. I mean, you have no idea. Right. Like you said, you were young, but being 13, 14, 15, 16, going to the ballpark, having your dad drive every one of my friends to their door after the game. I mean, that's where is it though? My dad would do that. He'd drive the guy to the door. Right to the door. Not take. They're waiting. Where are they going? They're going to get the bus. He goes, no. Put them in the Cadillac. Because I'll drop them off. Every game, not one day. Every game, just wait for me after the game. I'll take them home. That's great. Okay. Yeah, when I get down to, man, I really, and this podcast makes me feel, it is. You think of those times and you think of all the stuff that we were around and just being part of that whatever you call it, energy or what, man, it was something else. So, like I said, I think you and I and Ronnie and our families were so fortunate. I think being grateful and being able to draw back on that path to go forward is, hey, man, life is great. Yeah. I mean, I'm so fortunate to be a part of that. Who can say that? I mean, there's nobody I don't run who says, Jesus Christ, Bill, you've led an unbelievable life. I said, I have. I've been lucky. Right, buddy. Right on, man. Right on. All right, Billy. Love you, brother. Love you too, Jeff. Thanks, bud. I'll talk to you soon. And for sure. Let me know when you're coming in town. Yeah, let's see if we can hook that up if he wants to do it. Maybe not. We'll do it next year. Okay. All right, buddy. Yeah, definitely. And then I'll hopefully I come out to California, maybe see you now that I'm that would be great. Right. That'd be great, man. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know, man. I know. All right, buddy. All right, Billy. Talk to you soon, pal. Love you, pal. That's our show, folks. Special thanks to our cool crackerjacks, Scott Nelson, Jim McCauley, Debbie Foley, Sherry Matarisi, Terry Rankin-Gurovitz, Terry O'Brien, and Gary Tallman. And special thanks to Steve Harrison at the Audio Suite for the post-production on the last 2 episodes. If you want to support the show and be a cool crackerjack yourself, subscribe on the Patreon page by clicking the link below this episode or go to our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com. Remember to click the follow button for next week's episode.
And give us a quick review on Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it.
And don't hesitate to write, give us suggestions, or tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
My closing quote: love is the most important thing in the world, but baseball is pretty good too. Yogi Berra.
I agree. Toodaloo.
SantoFilms.com, the place to buy This Old Cub DVDs, posters, and This Old Cub t-shirts. Get yourself one now at SantoFilms.com.